Audio Jungle.
We already talked about the sites, right? We talked about sites. Now we talked about sites because we want to have different, different. We have already have a lot of different sites, a lot of different customers where we want to manage them remotely. Now we need to remember that we want to manage them remotely. However, if at all we want to have them on different sites, we need to make sure that there is connectivity from your controller to that particular site, either through site-to-site VPN or maybe some kind of port forwarding or something like that, which would have an access to the controller to the sites which are not local to the controller. This is more to do with something called as remote manageability or N3 manageability. All you need to do is adopt a device. When we talk about adopting a device, we're basically putting up all the settings from the controller to a particular access point or a UniFi device, which could be a switch as well as a UniFi security gateway. Adoption is a process of taking on board a particular device onto the UniFi network.
So when you have a UniFi controller online and you have add additional devices, those devices will automatically show up in the UniFi controller, and you can simply just go. It'll be saying pending adoption. You can simply just go and click on the adopt button, and the device will be adopted. There's a lot more information on this online, and we'll be sending out some more helpful links after the webinar is done. Obviously, we can't go into the details of every single thing right now because we have a limited time, but we'll be sending out more information on how you can adopt a UniFi device if this is your first time doing that.
To simply understand, adoption process is a process of having a controller, onto the same network, or maybe having a connected network or some kind of connectivity between the unified devices and the controller. So if at all you have a connectivity between the devices and the controller, the devices would show up as pending adoption, and you can simply adopt them so that you can have all the settings from the controller moved on to the unified devices. Using the controller, we also have a lot of options of creating different SSIDs. So we have options to create multiple WLAN groups. Now, WLAN groups are basically a group of SSIDs which can be broadcasted by a particular radio on an access point. Now, we can have multiple WLAN groups. However, a WLAN group can only have up to 8 or up to 4 SSIDs which can be created under one WLAN group. If at all you're using wireless uplink, the restriction of creating an SSID onto a particular radio or a particular access point is for SSIDs per WLAN group. WLAN group is nothing but a group of SSIDs which can be broadcasted by an access point or by a radio from an access point. When I keep saying radio, I mean to say that since we have these access points which have dual radios, you can have different SSIDs broadcasted from a 2.4 GHz radio on that access point, and different set of SSIDs broadcasted from the 5 GHz radio that we have on the access point.
So this simple screenshot here, which is a screenshot from the controller, we'll be going to the controller now to see where exactly this is done. So in the UniFi controller, you can simply go to settings, which is at the bottom left, and in here opens up all the settings of your UniFi controller. In settings, you can go to wireless network and see your different WLAN groups here, where you can edit them as well. So for example, in a situation like this where you may have an admin, a corporate, and a guest WLAN group, you may have different needs for the different groups. You may want different security settings. You may have different user groups added to it. You can even add a WLAN schedule. What does that mean? So for example, if you want certain Wi-Fi networks to only be on at certain times, so for example, say you have a office where you have a lobby network and you don't want the lobby network to be on after 8 p.m. because there's no need and you don't want anyone logging into that network after 8 p.m. You can simply enable a WLAN schedule there and choose at what times these SSIDs will be live. You can also do other things like combining your 2.4 and 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi names into one, or you can have them separate.
The different SSIDs that we create, there is always an option to go ahead and set those SSIDs on different VLANs. So if in case you want to have a particular SSID being broadcasted and have a different VLAN for that particular SSIDs, you can always set that up. Different options relating to the SSIDs is also MAC filtering. You can certainly turn on MAC filtering, where you could go ahead and simply add devices which is going to be like a whitelist. You know the people that are going to be connected and you do not want anybody else to connect to that network. You can go ahead and simply create a whitelist of the different devices, add a list of MAC addresses. On the other side, if at all you want somebody not to connect to your network, you can certainly add a blacklist over there. There's also option of radius authentication, which can be done through a radius server. The radius server profile would be created if you have a USG. You can create a radius profile on the USG itself.
So it's always good practice to create WLAN groups if you have different kinds of user groups for things like hotels, for offices where you have guests connecting. Sometimes you may want the office admin to have a separate network, maybe the office managing directors to be on a separate network. You can always manage your SSIDs through WLAN groups, so it's definitely recommended to use this feature in the UniFi controller.
When we talk about different SSIDs, we also talk about why we want to create a separate SSID for the management group. Why do we want to create a different SSID for guest? There might be requirement that we would need to provide a lower throughput to a guest, or maybe give a higher throughput to a corporate or a management network. So the next option that we have on our controller is to create different user groups. The user groups basically have an option to go ahead and create bandwidth limitations, the kind of speed limitations that we have. So you can certainly set up a particular user group and assign it to a particular SSID. Again, there are different options which are available on the controller, since this controller is a controller which would manage your security gateway, your switches, as well as your UniFi access points. There are different options over here which would be helpful. So you can go ahead and turn on the DPI engine which we have on the controller itself. For this, you would require USG to be on your network. You can create failover links, which is again required by the security gateway. You can also have internet connection sharing. You can also have port forwarding. I think Pranav already talked about advanced firewall rules which can be created. Again, these firewall rules would be only applicable if at all you have a UniFi security gateway. If you do not have a UniFi security gateway, these options are absolutely of no use, because they would not be implemented on a third-party device which we have.
So once again, if you look at the UniFi controller out here, in the settings tab, you can see a number of different options here for routing and firewall, for port forwarding. You can also look at deep packet inspection, set up restrictions. So these are all really helpful if you have a UniFi Security Gateway or a UniFi Security Gateway Pro on your network. Of course, this includes the UDM Pro as well. And as mentioned earlier, we also have something called user groups. It's really helpful here when you want to set bandwidth limits. So for example, say you have an office which has one managing director who's always complaining about slow Wi-Fi, and the reason there is because you have people who are in the cafeteria who are streaming YouTube while they're eating lunch. You obviously don't want that issue to happen. So you would create a separate user group for high priority clients, and you may create a separate user group for clients, say in the lobby, or clients in the cafeteria that don't need large bandwidth limits, and you can always set bandwidth upload and download limits here.
As you can create n number of user groups again. This is scalable for different kind of networks, different kind of requirements. You can create n number of user groups with different speeds, with different bandwidth locations. And all of these user groups can then be assigned to a particular Wi-Fi network or a SSID which we have created under the wireless network.
As you can see here, for each of your SSID, you can then select which user group you want to be assigning it to. So for the admin SSID, you may want to add the user group that has the largest bandwidth, but for a guest SSID, you may want to add the guest user group so you can manage the guests' upload and download bandwidth limits.
I think somebody asked a question about having, around 3,000 users in auditorium. Not really sure who that person was, but I'm really sorry I did not capture the name. But just to answer your question, if at all you want to have different, a huge number of users, can you go ahead and load balance? Yes, there is an option to load balance a number of clients per radio that you have on your device. So you can simply create a WLAN group, which would be a WLAN group which would be for a specific load balancing option where you can have 20 users only connect to a particular radio, and then if at all there is more than 20 users, what will happen is it should connect to the other radios which are available. So one thing important to remember about load balancing is that all our devices will never deny services. When I say never deny services, that even if at all there is a 20 user limit, it might try to connect to a 21st user because there is no other access point which is able to provide the network. So whenever you're planning for a load balancing situation, you need to make sure that you have enough number of access points around the clients so that they can be connected to different users, so that the load balancing can be done seamlessly. If you have maybe just 1 or 2 access points and the maximum users, maximum bandwidth that we have set is 20, and there are like 45 people want to connect, the access points will not block those clients. However, they will keep kicking out clients with lower signal, which means that is going to create an instability in your Wi-Fi network. So while planning for load balancing on access points, please make sure you have enough number of access points which can be used for providing access to the band limited numbers. So you would have to create a WLAN group for setting up the load balancing. Just give me a second.
So another reason why load balancing is used is in areas where you can often expect clients to stick to a particular device. So say, for example, you have a large room where a client is entering and there's one access point at the very entrance. It would be pretty common for all clients to connect to that one access point. And then what could happen is that the client then roams around the entire large exhibition room, but for some reason is still connected to that one access point at the entrance of the room. So in this case, load balancing is a really helpful feature because then it forces that one client to actually go ahead and connect to another access point that it is closer to. So as you can see in the screenshot here, when creating a new WLAN group, you can balance the number of clients per radio and set the limit you want it to. We've spoken about user groups. User groups obviously are used to set bandwidth limits. So if you have different kinds of clients, you have guest clients, you have corporate clients, you have management, and you want them to have different bandwidth limits, it's always helpful to add different user groups to the SSIDs so that those clients can connect to their own user groups and get the necessary upload and download speed. As you can see in the image on the right, the corporate SSID has unlimited upload and download speeds, whereas the guest SSID has been limited to 512 kbps upload and 2048 download.
One thing to remember about creating user groups, the only thing that you could do with a user group is to set up bandwidth limits. You cannot set up a limit of downloads. Like you cannot set up a user group to have downloads of only up to 1 gigabit or 1 gigabit of data file from the internet. So that is not available. Only the bandwidth usage is available under the user groups. To answer your question, Asrar, no, it does not control non-UniFi access points.
Everything we're talking about here is for UniFi devices only. The UniFi controller will only be able to manage, configure, customize, etc. UniFi products, which includes our UniFi access points, switches, security gateways, etc.
I think also the next thing that we've already talked about a lot is wireless uplink. So just to give you an idea about what wireless uplink basically means is in simple terms mesh network, which means a wireless access point would connect to another wireless access point wirelessly. In our proprietary, we've called it wireless uplink. So wireless uplink mesh outdoor APs that we have are the best for wireless uplink. This is in scenarios where there is no possible way that we can go ahead and drag cables to certain situations where you have car parks, we have a garden, a lawn where you cannot have a Wi-Fi, a wired cable go onto, like across a pool, historic buildings, public places. So in all these scenarios, we would require wireless meshing, which means wirelessly connecting one access point to another access point and then providing Wi-Fi access to the clients.
One really important thing to remember with wireless uplink is that it's always recommended to add a wire whenever possible, because wireless uplinks will always lead to a throughput loss. So for every device that is uplinked wirelessly to another device, there will be a significant throughput loss. Again,
you can turn on wireless uplink under the site. You can turn it on over here or disable wireless uplink. So if in case you are not using wireless uplinks, you can go ahead and simply turn this feature off, which means wirelessly you would not be able to connect another access point to the existing wireless access point that you have.
Once again, this is in the settings section of the UniFi controller under site.
To answer your question, Dheeraj, can we set 2 GB per day download data for one user? Now, the direct answer to this would be yes and no. So you can set up a 2 GB per download data for a guest and not for a user. When we talk about user, we will not be able to do it because these are users and we don't want to do that for a user. But for a guest, like if at all you're having a hotspot situation where you have having a Wi-Fi network in, let's say, McDonald's or Starbucks, in places where you can offer Wi-Fi network for guests, there you can set up the bandwidth limitation of 2 GB or 1 GB or maybe more than that, or maybe different uses like maybe one-time usage, maybe 1 day, 1 week usage. You can have all that done by the guest network, which is our next thing, which is basically the next feature that we have available for the Wi-Fi network. Guest portal is a portal which can create a kind of a guest network for your clients, where you tend to have them connect to your Wi-Fi network. However, you do not want them to be users. You want them to be connected separately, isolated from other users, because guest environment is basically an environment where you do not know each other and you do not want to share or have access to different clients connected to it. So guest control is an option to go ahead and create a guest portal for your network. You can set up guest portals in different ways. There is an option to go ahead and set up with a no authentication. You can set up simple password. You can have a hotspot. When we talk about hotspot, this is what I was talking about. You can create simple vouchers, which could be for different type of usage, like maybe 1 GB data per day or maybe 1 day use case. You can use hotspot for that. Also, there are certain situations like maybe hotels where you would require the clients to pay for Wi-Fi network. You can simply select a hotspot over here, put in your payment gateway, and ask the customers to go ahead and pay, from their credit cards over there. So that option is also available. The hotspot manager, again, is a separate thing altogether. This manager can help you create vouchers, different use case vouchers. Like I said, you can set up bandwidth limits. You can set up the download limits per day or per session. Different things are available over here. This can be done through the UniFi controller and also from the UniFi app that we have.
So one helpful thing here is that there's a separate Hotspot Manager application which you can actually use independent of the controller. So you can give someone else, say if you're a hotel, you can give the hotel reception access to the Hotspot Manager itself without giving them access to the controller. So they won't have access to change anything in the UniFi controller, but they can still have access to the Hotspot Manager where they can create vouchers, print out vouchers, and create different settings for vouchers for guests. So this is another free software that UniFi provides, which integrates with the UniFi controller very seamlessly and enables you to create a very easy hotspot network and have clients either use unique codes to log into the Wi-Fi or have them pay for their Wi-Fi through a payment gateway. So all this can once again be done on the UniFi controller. So if you go to demo.ui.com, you can simply go to settings, and then go to guest control, where you will be required to enable your guest portal. Again, one thing very important to know is that for your guest portal to be working, you would need your controller to be online. So you have to make sure you have a controller that's running at the time. You can set different authentication methods, set expiration of the guest portal, and there are a number of different customizations you can make to the portal, where you can add your own logo, add your own information, add your own marketing material, etc. You can also create your own separate guest portal and have this guest portal redirect to your own guest page, which then you can integrate your SMS gateway, payment gateway, and a number of different features to it.
So So there is also an option for you to go ahead and set up your own external, server, which would be acting as a guest portal, where you can go ahead and have SMS authentications like OTP authentications, which some users might require, where you want to give an OTP to the customer's phone, and then add that OTP as a password to connect to the network.
So before we go to the next section, I think we're going to just give a couple minutes to see if people have any questions. This was a very important section about the UniFi controller. So before we go into the different management features in the controller, we will just give some time to look at the questions you guys have.
Sunil, you had a question relating to your Wi-Fi fluctuating and connecting back again. I don't think so that we should get into troubleshooting a particular problem, but for you to understand that we have a support team which you can email to or maybe chat with us. We have 24/7 chat support as well as email support. You can send out an email to support@ui.com, and we can certainly address to your problems that you have relating to your Wi-Fi disconnecting again and again.
But Dharmendra, in reference to your question about the fast roaming option, it supports 802.1R, which is fully standard. We have done some modifications so that the transition, that's the basis transition from one AP to another AP, happens more smoothly than how it works on APs that belong to other brands. Yogesh, in reference to your question, I believe you're asking about multiple VLANs on an access point. If that's a question, yes, you can tag each VLAN, each SSID with a different VLAN when configuring the wireless network. Dharmendra, about your question about connecting high performance clients to 5 GHz, when a client connects to an SSID, okay, it will randomly connect either to a 2.4 or a 5 GHz SSID that you have created. But if you have this option enabled, the controller or the AP will force the client to connect to a 5 GHz network if the client is able to support 5 GHz. So that way your 2.4 GHz network will not be that loaded. Right, Vineet, yes, you will need the USG if you are planning to use radius authentication, because the USG is the device which is hosting the free radius server, and without that you would not be able to perform radius authentication on any of the other devices. So if you want a setup which needs radius assigned VLANs or radius authentication, you will need to have a USG in that side.
Also, the controller should be on that side. Yeah, controller basically should be running.
Right, access point retry rate, Ashish, that was your question. It's the number of times a packet has, when it's sent over the network, if there is any issue or the packet does not reach the destination, it has to be resent. So that's the number of retries the AP will perform to get the packet across to the destination of the host.
And Junaid, yes, there is an Android app. Wi-Fi Man is available on Android as well as iOS. So you can definitely use that app for planning your network setup. Sunil, for support, the email for support is support@ui.com. I'll type it on there. It's a 24/7 helpline where you can access our support team through email as well as chat in order to get troubleshooting on your Wi-Fi. We'll be talking about support options in more detail later. So now we're going to talk about ongoing network management. So once you set up a UniFi network, how can you use the controller to manage it, view it on an ongoing basis?
The another steering option that we are talking about is as good as what we talked about, forcing a client connecting to 5 gigahertz. So that is another way of having band steering done from the access point side, where the access points will go ahead and have the clients which are capable of 5 gigahertz speeds connect to 5 gigahertz radio, so that the whole network is a better network where I have faster clients connecting to your Wi-Fi network, and then the overall throughput, overall efficiency of your network becomes higher.
So going back to the UniFi controller, we're going to start on the dashboard page. As you can see on top here, you can switch between different sites. This demo controller, which you can always access at demo.ui.com, has 3 sites uploaded to it. We can go to the FedEx forum, which is one of the sites, which is a basketball stadium.
All right, so again, the main requirement of having a controller is to also understand what exactly is happening on your network. So the main dashboard that you see on your screens right now is basically a dashboard which will tell you what exactly is happening, how many clients are connected, how many access points are working, how many access points are not working, how many guests are connected. If there is any kind of switches, if there is any kind of security gateway in your network, how exactly is the utilization of the of your internet capacity. So different things which are available over here, and also more things which can be added to your network by creating custom dashboard. By clicking on that plus sign down over there, you can simply add a custom dashboard and create separate widgets which will help you add more things for management purposes, to look into your purposes, to monitor your network.
As you can see, there are also 2 themes. You can change it to a dark theme if that's something you prefer.
The second tab on the controller is the statistics tab. This statistics tab is basically has different options for you to go ahead and give information about the overall connectivity of your network. How many clients are connected per SSID? What exactly is the top access points which are being used? Which client is using them? The most bandwidth. These are different things which you would require when you're managing a network, to find out and to make sure that your network is stable, and to make sure that you understand that there is something which is going okay, or something which is going bad, or something going great, for you to understand if at all there is any kind of changes required in your network. So if in case that there is an access point which is being utilized the maximum, you would need to make sure that there is another access points to be used or maybe deployed in that particular network. It's simple for us to understand that if at all we know that there is going to be a lot of users connected to a particular area, you would require more than one access point, so that you have better connectivity and better throughputs for all those clients. So yes, as we talked about software-defined networking, this is basically a software which will tell you, which will go ahead and let you manage your whole network, which will configure your Wi-Fi network, your wired network, which is from the UniFi switch, the security gateway. You can manage the whole UniFi network through the controller, as well as look into it, find out what exactly is happening good, what is going wrong, so that you can get information about your network and work onto it accordingly. The other tabs that you see, you would see the different tabs. We already checked out a tab which was the maps, where you could go ahead and upload a floor plan, add access points over there to see if at all you've got the best coverage, add a designer plan so that you can add different materials like walls, glass. So that is already available on the maps icon. The fourth icon that you see is basically the devices. The number of devices which would be listed over here would be managed by the controller, and some devices, if at all they're in a default state, they would show up as pending adoption, which means that you can go ahead and adopt them and work on them so that they can be using the same kind of settings which are present for the other access points. There is a direct option to go ahead and upgrade an access point, a switch, or a security gateway from this tab itself. The next tab will show you the number of clients which are connected. There are different options to go ahead and have a filter for this. You can click on the filter so that you get to know which client is connected to a particular access point, what exactly is the SSID used by a particular access point. So you have different options to again monitor your network to find out what is exactly happening, what exactly is the activity which a particular client is doing. Again, to get into details, you can go ahead and go on to demo.ui.com to see how exactly the client's tab also works. Insights tab is a tab where it will give you deep insights about how the network has been. Mostly it will have the clients which were already connected, not connected at this point of time. It will also show up some access points which are neighboring. You have situations where you have your access point connected, but there are many more access points around your area which would be broadcasting. So this basically is a kind of a detection mechanism of the access points that we have. They detect that there is another access point which is nearby, maybe using the same frequency that we are or same channel that we are using, which tells us that probably we should switch to a different channel so that we get a better connectivity and less of interference. There is an events tab which will give you details about what exactly is happening. Sometimes a client is roaming from one particular access point to another access point. If there is a new access point connected, or sorry, a new client connected, it will give you details. Basically, any kind of events that is happening in your networks will show up over here under the events tab. If you check on the screen right now, you have a question that basically is a place where you can go ahead and start a chat with our team, which is 24/7.
So now we're just going to quickly talk about some common issues that people face.
So there have been very common issues relating to managing our UniFi networks. The most common issues is the access point or the UniFi switch adoption problems. The main reasons for an access point not able to adopt onto a particular controller boils down to two main things. One is probably there is a firmware mismatch. When I say firmware mismatch, some of the access points have an older firmware in it, and the controller that we use is the most advanced one. So there is obviously a mismatch of the controller firmwares and the access point firmwares. This means that the access point will not be adopted until there is a matching firmware uploaded onto the access points, and then once that is done, you should be able to adopt the access points. So it's basically a very common issue that we kind of keep facing as far as support is concerned. The second main reason of access point adoption issues is, maybe the access points are unable to get the DHCP IPs. They are unable to reach the controller itself. Sometimes it would not show up on the network for various reasons. There could be a reason that the Windows firewall is blocking some kind of ports which require your access points to report back to the controller. And those are the reasons. Basically, the devices are unable to reach to the controller, and that's why the adoption fails, or it is not available for adoption. So two things to keep in mind when you have any kind of adoption issues relating to switch or maybe access points both over here, is to look at the firmware which is uploaded onto the access point or the device, and the firmware which is required by the controller. The second thing is the connectivity between the controller and the devices. The next common issue obviously, I mean, this is the most common issue for probably all the Wi-Fi devices, slow speed issues. So when we are having our customers having problems when we have deployed a particular network, and the customers complain that there's slow speeds, we are unable to find better throughputs for clients. So three important things to understand and to make sure that we know what exactly is happening is to find out what exactly is the problem relating to the slow speeds. Is it on a particular frequency which has a problem, or is it on a particular client which has a problem? And then accordingly we have to deal with the problem. So let's say if at all we say that the clients on 2.4 gigahertz have very low speeds. Now we need to understand that 2.4 gigahertz already has lesser speeds. However, a lot of consumer-based devices use 2.4 gigahertz frequency, which means it gets a lot crowded, which means there is a great possibility of having interferences on the 2.4 gigahertz. You need to make sure that the frequencies used by the 2.4 gigahertz radio is the best frequency, and to check the channel frequency interference, you can certainly use the Wi-Fi app, the Wi-Fi Man app, which will tell you which is the best channel which can be used and has lesser number of clients, so that there are better speeds and no interferences. If there is a problem relating to 5 gigahertz, moving to a different channel frequencies, checking it on the Wi-Fi Man app is the best way to go ahead and tackle that kind of problem. Also, if in case it's related to a client, some customer says that there is a problem related to my Android devices. The Android devices are very slow. However, my iOS devices are fine. My Mac OS is very slow, but my Windows is very fine. Different scenarios. So we need to tackle these problems according to the type of clients. We have to narrow down to a particular situation to find out what exactly is going wrong. And if in case overall the access point is providing bad speeds to everything 5 gigahertz, maybe 2.4 gigahertz, we've changed channels. We've seen that the clients, different clients, or maybe all the clients have the same kind of problem. Somebody said that there are intermittent connectivity issues relating to a particular access point. Then we would have to look at the side where it is going to the wired network. Is the wired network fine? We need to find out if at all, if connecting to your network with a wire, is the speeds better. So you need to, there are different ways to look at slow speed problem. We have a very good article which is available for connectivity as well as slow speeds on Wi-Fi network. Gives a lot of in-depth information about what are the things that can be checked out. And we will certainly go ahead and share that article link for you all. The third most important or most common issue that we have is forgetting of the controller password. To remind you guys that the controller password is a very important thing. If at all you do not set up the SMTP server settings on the controller, and you have not turned on the cloud access on your controller, which means you can access your controller from unifi.ui.com, you will not have access to the controller. There's absolutely no other way to recover the password from the controller if the SMTP server is not set up. So best practices to make sure that you know the password, maybe jot it down. Sometimes we have come across issues where the customers use these these password collector applications. Sometimes that is also problems. The password collector applications also do not take the right kind of password. So make sure that you know the right password and never forget the passwords. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it for the common issues.
So talking about support, obviously that's something that a lot of you are here for, and it's a very important part. We have two main forums where clients can get support from us. Number one is we have a very good support page. If you go to help.ui.com, which I'll actually do right now with you guys. So if you go to help.ui.com, you can see that we have support sections and support articles written for every kind of device. Here I'm going to click on UniFi network, since that's what we're talking about today. And you can see you have help articles for all kinds of issues, right from getting started and device adoption to UniFi configuration for various UniFi devices, system management, troubleshooting. And within each section as well, you have a number of different articles which covers almost every issue you could face. And if, for example, you don't find it here, you can always search out here and find the article that's most relevant to you. In addition, we also have our support team. You can contact our support team from the contact page. Either you can submit a help request via email and you'll get a response via email, or you can also open a live chat and talk to our representatives live. Once again, we have a 24/7 support team here, so you can always feel free to reach out to us if you have any issues with your Ubiquiti network. Second, and all of us more importantly, I want to talk about the community page. The community page is the #1 resource you can use to get support regarding Ubiquiti. It's a large community of our users, our partners, our customers, our SIs, our resellers, our distributors, and even our developers are sitting on this page and answering users' questions. So if you go to community.ui.com, you can actually see what the community page is. You can search the community page, or you can even ask your own questions here. So for example, if you've searched my UAP AC Pro not adopting, just an example, you will probably get a number of different people who've had similar problems with the UAP AC Pro, and you can select that and see what has happened there. This is the quickest and the best way because you have users from across the world giving suggestions and ideas. And out here, as you see, we also have a Ubiquiti support engineer who is answering questions. So this is once again the best place you can get help from, because whatever issue you have, chances are that someone else has also faced that issue in the past, and you can look at the community posts to get answers from that issue. If you don't see your issue here, you can always create a new topic and talk about what your issue is. And if you're still not happy with the response from the community group, you can always reach out to our support team on email or live chat. I really want to stress that people should be looking at the community page not just for support issues, but also for stories. You can actually go ahead and see different people's Ubiquiti setups. We actually have one here from India itself set up here, a UniFi deployment in an office space by Akanksha Digital. So you can also upload your own stories out here, your own case studies with your own pictures and details on the community, and you can always reach out to us. You can reach out to me directly if you are interested in submitting a case study. Then you can I can work with you to draft the case study, put the pictures, and even publish it here if you like. This is a global page, and by publishing your stories on this page, you can get global awareness about your company, about the deployments you all have done, etc.